I thought I was about to marry the perfect woman until I stumbled upon her hidden group chat, where she referred to me as Lemon Boy and mentioned how I was just a better coworker. She even joked about draining my bank account before the wedding and humiliating me at a party. I stayed quiet and ended the engagement right then and there. But what I uncovered next about her other victims and the missing children turned our breakup into a full-fledged manhunt. My name is Marshall Whitmore. I'm 43, and I run a successful HVAC business in suburban Ohio. I built it from the ground up after my divorce 8 years ago, working 16-hour days to support my kids, Paige, who's 16, and Owen, 14. They're great kids, despite everything their mother and I put them through during our separation. I thought I was ready to try again when I met Delilah Standon 2 years ago at a charity auction. She was bidding on a weekend getaway, laughing with her friends, and seemed like she had her life in order. A divorced mom of 2, just like me. Her kids were Chloe, 15, and Mateo, 13. She seemed perfect, a blended family waiting to happen. 6 months ago, I proposed. It wasn't anything extravagant, just a simple dinner at the restaurant where we had our first date. She said yes, but there was something in her eyes that didn't align with her smile. I convinced myself I was just overthinking it. 3 weeks ago, at the engagement party, everything started to unravel, though I didn't realize it at the time. The party was at her friend's house, one of those backyard affairs with string lights and too much wine. I was standing by the appetizer table while Delilah was telling some story to her work colleagues from the marketing firm where she worked as an account manager. "Marshall's so sweet," she said, and I smiled, thinking she was giving me a compliment. "He literally asks permission before making any decisions. Yesterday, he texted me 3 times to ask if he should stop for groceries." The women laughed, not the warm kind of laughter shared among friends, but the sharp, cutting kind that makes your stomach drop. "That's actually kind of pathetic," one of them said. "I think it was Janet from her office. My ex-husband used to do that. Drove me crazy." Delilah nodded eagerly. "Right? Sometimes, I feel more like his mom than his fiancée. He even asked if he could use the bathroom at my place last week," she added. More laughter. I felt heat rise in my neck, but I stayed rooted to the spot, holding a plate of spinach dip. "Well, at least you know he's not going anywhere," another voice chimed in. "Guys like that are too scared to leave." I carefully set the plate down, walked to the bathroom, and stared at myself in the mirror for what seemed like forever. When I came out, the conversation had moved on, but something inside me had changed. For the first time, I started noticing how she spoke about me when I wasn't around. That night, while driving home separately because she wanted to help clean up, I realized I'd been living in a fantasy. The woman I thought I was going to marry wasn't real. She was a version I'd created in my mind. The real Delilah had been showing me who she truly was all along. The next morning, I was in the kitchen making breakfast when Paige walked in. My daughter has always been perceptive, a trait she gets from her mother. I'll admit that much. She poured herself some orange juice and gave me a look that said she had something important to share. "Dad, can I ask you something?" she said, hopping onto the counter stool. "Go ahead, kiddo. Do you actually like Delilah?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I stopped flipping pancakes and looked at her. "What kind of question is that?" Paige shrugged, but her eyes were serious. "I mean, really like her, because Owen and I have been talking, and we don't think she likes you very much." Owen wandered in at that moment, still in his pajamas, his hair sticking out in all directions. "She talks to you like you're stupid, Dad," he said flatly, reaching for the cereal. "And she's always on her phone when you're talking." I put the spatula down. "What do you mean? Talks to me like I'm stupid?" "Like yesterday," Paige said. "When you were telling her about the Henderson job, she rolled her eyes and started texting someone. Then she said, 'That's nice, honey,' without even looking up." Owen nodded as he chewed his cereal. "And remember when you fixed her garbage disposal? She didn't even say thank you, just complained that it took too long." These were my kids, 16 and 14, and they were seeing things I'd been blind to. I sat down across from them, suddenly feeling like I needed their wisdom more than they needed mine. "Her kids don't like her much either," Paige added quietly. "Chloe told me at school that her mom only cares about looking good on Instagram. She spends more money on photo shoots than on groceries. And Mateo's scared of her," Owen said. "He told me she screams at him for leaving dishes in the sink, but then leaves her makeup all over the bathroom counter." I stared at my half-eaten pancakes. My children, whom I'd worried might not accept a stepmother, were actually trying to protect me from making a mistake. Dad, Paige said softly, you know you deserve better, right? You take care of everyone. Last winter, you fixed Mrs. Patterson's furnace for free. You coached Owen's little league team for 3 years. You never miss our school events. You're a good man. Owen nodded in agreement. Yeah. And Delilah acts like you're lucky to have her, but it should be the other way around. Any woman would be lucky to have you. I felt my throat tighten. These kids, who I'd been so worried about disrupting with a stepfamily, were actually more mature about relationships than I was. Thanks, guys, I managed to say. That means everything to me. Paige reached over and squeezed my hand. We just want you to be happy, Dad. Really happy, not pretending to be happy. That afternoon, I couldn't shake their words. I kept thinking about the engagement party, about how uncomfortable Delilah's own kids seemed around her, how they seemed to prefer my company instead, and how Mateo had asked me to help him with his math homework while his mother was too busy taking selfies. Maybe it was time to start listening to the people who actually cared about me. I'd been avoiding Vincent Stannon for months. Delilah always painted him as the villain in their divorce story. Unreliable, selfish, the type of man who'd rather spend money on golf than on his kids. But after what Paige and Owen had told me, I started wondering if I'd been getting the sanitized version of things. Vincent worked at the tire shop on Maple Street. I drove there on Tuesday afternoon, telling myself I was just getting my truck's alignment checked. But in reality, I needed to hear his side of the story. He was working under the hood of a sedan when I walked in, wearing grease-stained coveralls and boots that had clearly seen better days. When he saw me, his expression shifted from surprise to something that looked like pity. Marshall, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. Didn't expect to see you here. Just need something done on the truck, I said, then paused. Actually, that's not true. I wanted to talk to you. Vincent nodded slowly, as if he'd been expecting this conversation. He gestured toward a couple of plastic chairs near the office. Yeah. He sat down heavily, looking older than his 44 years. What do you want to know? The truth about why your marriage really ended. Vincent was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. She told you I was the problem, didn't she? That I didn't appreciate her, that I didn't provide enough, that I wasn't emotionally available. I nodded. She's not lying, he said, to my surprise. I wasn't perfect. But Marshall, she has this way of making you feel like nothing you do is ever good enough. I worked 60-hour weeks to support her lifestyle, and she complained that I was never home. When I cut back my hours to spend more time with the family, she complained that we couldn't afford the things she wanted. He looked me in the eye. You know about the money, right? How she handles finances. What do you mean? Check your accounts, man. All of them. She's probably been moving money around, setting up her exit strategy. That's what she did with me. By the time I figured out what was happening, she'd drained our savings and opened credit cards in my name. My chest tightened. Are you serious? Dead serious. And there's something else. She probably already has someone lined up. She doesn't leave one relationship until she has the next one secured. There was overlap between me and you, wasn't there? I thought back to how quickly things had progressed, how eager she had been to introduce me to her kids, how quickly she started talking about moving in together. Maybe. She introduced me to her current guy about 3 months before she filed for divorce. She said he was just a business contact. The shop suddenly felt too small, too hot. Current guy? I asked. Vincent's expression turned grim. Bradley Chun. He owns some consulting firm downtown. They've been seeing each other for at least 6 months, probably longer. She thinks I don't know, but Mateo tells me things. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Your son knows? Kids see everything, Marshall. They're not stupid. Mateo's been asking me why his mom's new friend keeps coming to the house when you're not around. That night, I couldn't sleep. Vincent's words kept echoing in my mind. Check your accounts, man. All of them. At 2 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went to my home office. What I found made me physically sick. Our joint wedding account was almost empty. $37,000 gone. Money I'd saved for 2 years. Money that was meant for our future. The transactions showed regular transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, payments to luxury retailers, and even a down payment on a BMW that wasn't in my driveway. I printed everything: bank statements, credit reports, transaction histories. By sunrise, I had a paper trail that told a story of systematic financial betrayal. My phone rang at 7:15. Delilah's voice was cheerful, oblivious. Good morning, handsome. I was thinking we could look at venues for the rehearsal dinner this weekend. With what money? I asked quietly. There was a pause. What do you mean? The wedding account, I said. Delilah. It's empty. Another pause. Longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It became sharp. Marshall, I don't appreciate your tone. And I don't appreciate being robbed blind. Rob. Her laugh was bitter. That money was for us, for our future. I've been making investments, handling the details you're too busy to deal with. Like the BMW lease in your name, like the $5,000 shopping spree at Nordstrom, like the payments to Bradley Walsh. Dead silence. How do you know about Bradley? She asked finally, her voice taking on a dangerous edge. Vincent told me, I replied. Your ex-husband, the one you claim never talks to you. Funny thing, he seems to know a lot about your current activities. Vincent is a liar and a loser. And if you believe anything he says, I believe my bank statements, I interrupted. I believe the credit reports. I believe $37,000 of evidence. She was silent for nearly a minute. When she spoke again, her tone had changed, colder, more calculated. Marshall, you're obviously upset. Let's talk about this tonight. Okay, face to face. I can explain everything. Yeah, I said. Let's do that. After I hung up, I called my lawyer. Then I contacted my bank and froze all our joint accounts. Then I did something that felt both necessary and final. I called Paige and Owen's school and added Delilah's name to the list of people who were not authorized to pick them up. Whatever game Delilah had been playing was about to end. That evening, I walked into what I thought would be our final confrontation. Delilah had suggested meeting at her friend Sandra's house again, the same place where she'd publicly humiliated me. She said Sandra was hosting a small gathering, just a few close friends, and afterward, we could talk privately. I should have known it was a trap. When I arrived, there were about 15 people there. All her work friends, some neighbors, and a few couples I didn't recognize. Delilah was already holding court near the kitchen island, a glass of wine in hand, that practiced smile on her face. There he is, she called out when she saw me. My hard-working fiancé, fresh from another day of checking on furnaces and asking permission to spend his own money. The group chuckled, and I felt that familiar heat rise in my neck. But this time, instead of feeling ashamed, I felt something else, clarity. Marshall's been going through my personal finances, she continued, her voice growing louder, more theatrical. Apparently, he thinks I'm some kind of criminal for buying myself nice things with our wedding money. One of her coworkers, Janet, I think, shook her head sympathetically. Men always get weird about money when wedding planning starts. Right, Delilah said, warming up to her audience. He actually accused me of having an affair. Can you imagine? Like, I don't have better things to do than sneak around behind his back. The laughter was sharper now, more cutting. I stood there for a moment, watching her perform, watching these people eat up every word of her victim act. She was painting me as a jealous, controlling loser, and they were buying it completely. You know what the funniest part is? Delilah continued, really hitting her stride now. He got all this information from my ex-husband, Vincent, the same man who couldn't keep a job for more than 6 months, who spent our grocery money on lottery tickets. That's Marshall's reliable source. More laughter. Someone even said, poor Marshall, in that mock-sympathetic tone that made my blood boil. That's when something inside me snapped. Not in anger, but into perfect cold calm. I walked over to the kitchen counter, set down my keys, and pulled out my phone. Without saying a word, I opened my banking app and projected the screen onto Sandra's smart TV using the wireless display feature. The room went silent as our joint account transactions filled the 55-inch screen. Every transfer, every luxury purchase, every payment to Bradley Walsh, clearly visible, with dates and amounts. $37,000, I said calmly, my voice carrying in the suddenly quiet room. Our entire wedding fund was moved to accounts I don't have access to. Delilah's face went white. Marshall, what are you doing? I swiped to the next screen, her credit report, showing the BMW lease, the maxed-out credit cards, the loan applications in my name. This is what financial abuse really looks like, I said to the room. Not a man asking questions about where his money went, but a woman systematically stealing from her partner while publicly humiliating him. The silence was deafening. People were staring at the screen, then at Delilah, then back at the screen. And just so we're all clear, I added, pulling up the private investigator's photos I'd commissioned that afternoon. Here's Delilah having lunch with Bradley Walsh yesterday. And here they are at the Marriott downtown. The timestamps were visible. She humiliated me at that party, mocked me in front of strangers, and made me out to be a fool. So, I stayed silent, gathered my evidence, and ended our engagement right then and there, with the truth displayed for everyone to see. I unplugged my phone and walked toward the door. The wedding's off. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the money. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Within an hour of leaving Sandra's house, my phone was buzzing nonstop with texts and calls. Some were from people who'd been at the party, expressing their shock and support. Others were from Delilah's friends, calling me vindictive and cruel. I ignored them all and focused on what mattered, protecting my kids and cleaning up the financial mess. The next morning, Paige and Owen were waiting for me in the kitchen when I came downstairs. They'd obviously heard something through the teenage gossip network. "Dad," Paige said carefully, "Chloe texted me last night. She said her mom was crying and screaming about you embarrassing her in front of everyone." I poured myself some coffee, trying to figure out how much to tell them. They were old enough for honesty, but still young enough that I didn't want to poison them against all relationships. "Your dad discovered some things about Delilah that made it clear we weren't compatible," I said finally. Owen looked up from his cereal. "Did she really steal money from you?" Word travels fast in a small town. "She made some financial decisions without consulting me that I wasn't comfortable with," I answered. "Chloe said you showed everyone proof that her mom was cheating." I sat down at the table. "Kids, sometimes adults make mistakes. Big ones. Delilah made some choices that broke my trust, and I decided I couldn't marry someone I couldn't trust." Paige nodded slowly. "We're glad, Dad." "Really?" "Yeah. We didn't want to say anything before, but she was mean to us when you weren't around." "What do you mean?" Owen shifted uncomfortably. "Like, when you went to the store, she'd tell us to find something to do somewhere else. She'd say we were too loud, too messy, made us feel like we didn't belong in our own house. And she told Chloe and Mateo that once she married you, she was going to make some changes around here." Paige added, "Like we'd have to follow her rules, and if we didn't like it, we could go live with Mom." My jaw clenched. Using kids as pawns was something I'd never tolerate. "Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore," I said. "It's just us three again." Later that afternoon, Chloe and Mateo showed up at my door. Both of them looked miserable, like they hadn't slept. "Mr. Whitmore," Chloe said, "can we talk to you?" "Of course. Come in." They sat on my couch, and I could see they'd been crying. "Our mom is really angry," Mateo said quietly. "She's saying you ruined her life, that you stole her money, and made everyone hate her." Chloe looked at me with eyes that seemed far too old for a 15-year-old. "But we know that's not true. We know what she's like when adults aren't watching. We know about the money she hides, and the man who comes over when she thinks we're asleep." I felt my heart break for these kids. "What do you need from me?" "We want to go live with our dad," Chloe said. "We already called him." "He said yes, but Mom has to agree to change custody, and she won't. She says she needs us for her image for court. She's using us," Mateo added, his voice cracking, "just like she used you." I looked at these two kids who deserved so much more than being treated as pawns in their mother's schemes. "Let me make some calls," I said. 3 days after the confrontation at Sandra's house, I was sitting in my lawyer's office, surrounded by a stack of documents that could choke a horse. Tom Bradley, the attorney who'd handled my first divorce, was methodically going through everything I'd gathered. "This is impressive work, Marshall," Tom said, adjusting his glasses. "Most people wait until after they've been cleaned out to start collecting evidence." "I had good teachers," I replied, thinking of Vincent's warning and my kids' observations. Tom spread out the bank statements across his conference table. $37,000 and unauthorized transfers. Fraudulent credit applications, identity theft for the BMW lease. "We're looking at multiple felonies here." My phone buzzed with another text from Delilah's lawyer, demanding I stop harassing his client. I showed it to Tom. "She hired Richard Kellerman," Tom noted. "Expensive choice for someone who claims to be broke." "How expensive?" $500 an hour. Which raises the question, where is she getting the money? That afternoon, I got my answer. Vincent called while I was replacing a furnace filter at the Henderson house. "Marshall, we need to talk. Delilah's been calling me, trying to get me to sign some papers. I drove straight to his shop. Vincent was waiting with a manila envelope in his hands. She wants me to refinance my house, he said without preamble. Says it's to pay for her legal fees. Claims you're trying to take custody of our kids. She doesn't have custody issues with me. I'm not their father. That's what I told her. But she says if I don't help her, she'll take me back to court for more alimony. Vincent's hands were shaking. Marshall, I can't afford another court battle. She already destroyed my credit once. I looked at this broken man, seeing exactly what Delilah did to people who trusted her. Vincent, what if I told you we could end this? All of it. The alimony, the threats, everything. His eyes lit up with desperate hope. How? Tom thinks we have enough evidence for criminal charges. If she's convicted of fraud and identity theft, the alimony agreement becomes void. You'd be free, Vincent said, staring at me. You do that. Help me fight her. We're in this together now. She made that choice when she decided to destroy both our lives. That evening, I called a family meeting. Paige, Owen, and I sat around the kitchen table with takeout Chinese food, knowing a serious conversation was ahead of us. I need you both to understand what's about to happen, I said. This is going to get ugly before it gets better. Delilah is going to try to make me look like the bad guy, and that might affect you at school. Paige put down her chopsticks. Dad, we don't care what people say. We know who you are. Yeah, Owen added. And besides, half the kids at school already know their parents are jerks. At least our dad actually protects us. I felt my throat tighten. These kids had more wisdom than most adults. There's something else, I said. Chloe and Mateo might need our help. Their dad is driving up from Kentucky to file for emergency custody, but until then, they're stuck with Delilah. Are they safe? Paige asked, and I could see the concern in her eyes. I don't know, but I'm going to make sure they have somewhere to go if they need it. The next morning, Vincent called with news that changed everything. Marshall, she's gone. Packed up the kids in the middle of the night and left. Neighbors saw her loading suitcases at 3 a.m. My blood ran cold. Where did she go? I don't know, but she took my kids without permission. That's kidnapping. Within 2 hours, we had an Amber Alert issued and police at Delilah's house. What they found there made my skin crawl. The place was cleaned out. Not just clothes and personal items, but anything of value. Electronics, jewelry, even the copper pipes from under the kitchen sink. She'd stripped the house bare before running. Detective Sarah Morrison was a no-nonsense woman in her 40s who'd seen it all. She walked through the empty house with me and Vincent, taking notes. This wasn't spur of the moment, she said. This took planning. She's been preparing this escape for weeks. In what used to be Delilah's bedroom, they found something that made my blood boil. A printed email exchange between her and a man named David Fletcher in Phoenix, Arizona. The subject line read, "New beginning package." Looks like she's got another mark lined up, Detective Morrison said, scanning the emails. This Fletcher guy owns a landscaping business, recently widowed, with 2 teenage sons. Vincent was staring at the emails over her shoulder. She's already told him she's a widow too. Says her husband died in a car accident and left her with massive debt. I caught myself, remembering there were kids involved in this mess. Detective Morrison looked at me. Mr. Whitmore, I need you to understand something. If she makes it to Arizona and establishes residency there, extradition becomes complicated. We need to find her fast. What can we do? You're going to help us track her. Banking records, credit cards, cell phone pings, everything leaves a digital footprint. By evening, we had our first lead. Delilah had used a credit card, one she'd opened in my name, to buy gas in Louisville, Kentucky. She was heading west, probably planning to drive straight through to Arizona. Tom arrived at my house with updates from the legal front. The judge issued emergency warrants for kidnapping, identity theft, and fraud. She's officially a fugitive now. What about the kids? Vincent has emergency custody orders. The moment we find them, Chloe and Mateo come home with him. My phone rang. It was Paige, calling from her mother's house, where she and Owen were staying for safety. Dad, you need to see the news. I turned on the television to see a breaking news report. Delilah's photo filled the screen above the words, "Fugitive mother wanted for kidnapping." The reporter stood in front of our local police station. Delilah Stannon is wanted on multiple charges, including kidnapping, identity theft, and fraud. She was last seen driving a silver Honda Pilot with Ohio license plates, traveling with 2 children, ages 13 and 15. The reporter continued. Local businessman Marshall Whitmore discovered the alleged crimes after noticing irregularities in their shared financial accounts. My phone started ringing immediately. Neighbors, customers, even people I barely knew called to offer support or ask if I was okay. But the call that mattered came an hour later. Detective Morrison's voice was tense. We found her. She's at a motel outside Nashville. Local police have the place surrounded, but she's refusing to come out. She's claiming you threatened her, and she was fleeing for her life. I closed my eyes. Even now, even caught red-handed, she was still trying to play the victim. Detective, what do you need from me? I asked. Can you get here by tomorrow morning? She might be more willing to cooperate if you're here to ensure the kid's safety during the arrest. I looked around my empty house, thinking about two scared children trapped in a motel room with their unstable mother, and made the easiest decision of my life. I'm on my way. The Nashville motel looked like something out of a horror movie. Police cars were everywhere, spotlights trained on room 127, and Delilah's voice could be heard screaming threats from inside. She had been at it for hours. Claims you threatened her children, that she was protecting them by running through the thin motel walls. Detective Morrison told me as we approached the command center. I could hear Chloe crying. That sound cut through me like a knife. Let me talk to her, I said. Marshall, she's unstable. Could be dangerous. Those kids have been trapped in there for 12 hours. I'm not leaving without them. Detective Morrison handed me a megaphone. Keep it simple. Don't give her ammunition for her victim story. I walked to within 20 feet of the door, close enough to be heard without the megaphone. Delilah, it's Marshall. The kids must be scared and hungry. Let me bring them some food. Silence. Then her voice screamed, You destroyed my life. You humiliated me in front of everyone. I showed people the truth. That's not the same thing. Her laugh was bitter, unhinged. The truth is, you were never good enough for me. I was doing you a favor by staying with you. I heard Mateo's voice inside. Mom, please. We just want to go home. Home? Delilah shrieked. We don't have a home. You took everything. I took back what was mine, I said calmly. Money you stole, credit you destroyed, trust you betrayed. But this isn't about me anymore. It's about Chloe and Mateo. There was movement inside. The curtain twitched. They're scared, Delilah. Whatever you think of me, they don't deserve this. They're my children. Then act like their mother. Put them first for once. Long silence. Then the door opened a crack. Chloe's tear-stained face appeared. Mr. Whitmore, she whispered. I'm here, sweetheart. Everything's going to be okay. Delilah yanked her back inside. Get away from the door. Delilah, I said, my voice carrying the authority I'd learned from 20 years of running a business. This ends now. Those kids come out, or the police come in. Your choice. Another long pause. Then I heard the locks turning. The door opened fully, and Mateo ran straight to me. Chloe followed, both kids sobbing with relief. Delilah appeared in the doorway, looking nothing like the polished woman I'd once planned to marry. Her hair was matted, makeup smeared, eyes wild with desperation. You win, she said quietly. But don't expect me to thank you for destroying my life. As the police moved in to arrest her, she looked at me one last time. You'll never find anyone better than me. I looked down at her children, clinging to me, thought about my own kids safe at home, and realized something profound. I already have, I said. 6 months later, I was standing in my backyard, watching 4 kids play basketball on the new hoop I'd installed. Paige, Owen, Chloe, and Mateo, a blended family that actually worked. Vincent had permanent custody now, but the kids split time between our houses since we lived 2 blocks apart. Turns out, having a common enemy had turned us into genuine friends. Dad, Owen called out, dinner's ready. We'd started doing Sunday dinners together. Vincent, his kids, me and mine. Nothing fancy, just burgers on the grill and honest conversation. As we sat around my kitchen table, Vincent raised his beer. To Marshall, who had the guts to do what I couldn't. To family, I countered. All of us, the kids clinked their glasses of lemonade against our beers. Later that evening, after Vincent had taken Chloe and Mateo home, I sat on my porch with Paige and Owen, watching the sunset. Dad, Paige said, are you ever going to date again? I considered the question seriously. The trauma from Delilah had made me cautious, but not cynical. Maybe someday, but not until I'm sure I can trust my judgment again. Your judgment was fine, Owen said. You just trusted the wrong person. Doesn't mean you should stop trusting everyone. Smart kid, I said. Gets it from his old man, I like to think. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Local businessman testifies in fraud trial. Delilah's case had made headlines when prosecutors revealed she'd run similar scams in 3 other states. The trial was finally happening. Are you nervous about testifying? Paige asked. No, the evidence speaks for itself. Delilah had pled not guilty, still claiming to be the victim. But with bank records, witness testimony, and evidence from multiple states, her chances looked slim. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened it, I found a woman about my age holding a casserole dish. Mr. Whitmore, I'm Carol Patterson from down the street. I heard about everything you've been through, and I wanted to thank you. Thank me. My sister lives in Phoenix. She was dating David Fletcher, the man your ex-fiancé was targeting. When the story hit the news, my sister recognized the pattern. She got out before she lost everything. I accepted the casserole, genuinely touched. I'm glad she's safe. There are probably other women you've saved too, just by having the courage to speak up. After she left, I thought about that. Maybe some good had come from all the pain and humiliation. Dad, Owen said, rejoining me on the porch. Mrs. Patterson seems nice. I laughed. Subtle kid. Real subtle. I'm just saying, not everyone is like Delilah. He was right. Not everyone was like Delilah. But for now, I had everything I needed. My kids, my work, my self-respect, and the knowledge that I'd stood up when it mattered. The rest could wait.